This is part 2 for making this bow. If you haven't seen part 1, I'll put a link to it. This part's going to be mainly about making the riser. So here I have some epoxy and the 10-inch long piece of 1-inch wood dowel and the 10-inch long piece of 1-inch pipe. They slide nicely into each other. I'm putting some epoxy, a very thin layer, over the entire outside of the wood dowel. You don't have to get the entire outside necessarily, but you want to get a lot of it. And you need not very much, because even if you put on a very thin coating, the extra comes out. So just push it in there, scrape off the extra, and let it harden. I've got the 1.25 inch pipe here, the 16-inch long piece of 1.25 inch pipe. You saw that other piece fit loosely inside of it. I'm going to put some hot glue down inside of that 1.25 inch pipe. Make sure you put it down in further than 3 inches. It has to be further than 3 inches in from the end. You don't want it in the first 3 inches. And you can see I've heated it up to where it's soft. And it's got the glue inside there. And I'm just going to push in the part that has the wood and the 1-inch pipe. I want it to be 3 inches in from both ends. You can see you can just push it in using the end of a tape measure, and that helps you get it the right distance. So once it's in there, since 1.25 inch is a loose fit over 1-inch pipe, just pull on the 1.25 inch, and that makes it tighten down a little bit. Then, same thing with the 1.5 inch with the glue. Put some glue inside, except you don't have to do 3 inches in. You can just put it in there. Then heat it up and slip it over the 1.25 inch. And it might get stuck like this because it's a really tight fit between 1.5 inch and 1.25 inch. If it does, you can heat it up more. That'll melt the glue and get it pipe a little softer. It's frustrating when it gets stuck, but as you can see, I'm able to get it to go again. And you can see on the floor there how much extra hot glue comes out because it's just such a tight fit. If there's any extra hot glue other than a thin layer, it comes out. And I'm hammering, trying to get it all the way on there. You can hear me saying something. Not sure what I'm saying there. So I've cut off the extra just so that it's nice and even ends, and you can see I've heated up one of the ends there. So it's 2 layers of pipe that heat up. It takes a long time to heat up, but it stays warm. And I'm just sliding in a limb into there, the base of the limb. It should fit nicely. You're going to put a clamp on, one that pinches front to back and one that pinches side to side. This will help it keep a nice fit. You might end up with a couple of gaps at the corners, but it's okay, as long as the sides are touching. And then just push the limb forward and make it sure it's straight, like so that there's a slight amount of reflex, and it's not leaning side to side at all. You might have to form that part a couple times. And as you can see, if you're unlucky, like I was here, it might be impossible to get it out. Then you'd have to heat it up again and try it again. The other one I was able to get out. But once you do get them out, you just sand them and they'll fit smoother. It's okay if it's a little bit loose because we're going to be putting in a pin that'll keep it from rotating. But you want it to be still a good fit. But yeah, when you're putting in the limbs, make sure they're straight. Like if they're leaning a little bit, you can fix it later by heating up the base of the limb and just bending the limb. But you have to make sure the limbs are not rotated in relation to each other. You can see I'm testing with a string there. You can just use any string and tie a loop at each end at this point. Just get it so it's about the right length. Probably 3 to 6 inches shorter than being able to reach the ends of the bow. Just for a test string. And then I'm measuring here the distance from where the limb is bent out furthest back to the string. You want it to be the same, or if one limb is slightly more, like maybe 1/4 inch more at the most, then that can be the top limb. If one limb is bending way more, then you need to heat it up and fix it so that it's a little stiffer. because you want them to bend about the same. And at this stage, just also, with the string on, check again to make sure. I'm marking that that limb bends a little bit more there. Check to make sure it's straight, not leaning or twisting at all. So you can see it's fine. And while it's like this, put marks on. I'll show you those marks in a second. Put marks on the riser and on the limb at the base. That can help you tell, like, that's this. You keep it at the same orientation when you put the fit in. See that vertical line? Just make sure that's lined up when you do this next part. Put that on when the limb is straight, so that you know you can keep it straight. And I've got the metal latch pins. So you're going to need a drill bit that's the same diameter as the pin. And we're going to drill through, and the pin will go through there. Front to back. About 1 inch in from the end of the socket. Of course I'm standing with my arm in the way, but you can tell what I'm doing here. I'm just drilling through. And there's probably going to be some shavings down in there, but you can push that through and see that it fits. That it's the right size and everything. This keeps the limb from rotating and also from coming out. Like, it wouldn't come out when you're shooting anyway, but it still is nicer to have that. But the rotation is really important. Without the pin, the limb can definitely rotate. With this design of bow, anyway. The next thing we're going to do is cut the sight window / arrow shelf out. You can see I've drawn it onto the riser here. I've got that mark that goes all the way around. That's the center, and I put the bottom of the arrow shelf about 1/4 inch up from the center, and the height of the sight window is going to be 3 inches. At least that's what I did. You don't have to do this part exactly the same. It's just the arrow shelf. And this is the other bow that I made like this, so you can get an idea of what we're trying to cut out here, if you can actually see it. I think you can kind of see it at least. You can see I did a really bad job of cutting it out. And I'm also cutting out so the sides of the handles to give it kind of an hourglass shape there, so it fits your hand more nicely, and sanding it. Just shape the handle how you want down there. But don't take off too much material from the front and back. And this is a flattened piece of PVC, just like cut out and flattened, heated up and flattened, and this is going to be part of the arrow shelf. You can see I just sanded the edges, made it all smooth. I'll show you how it fits on there. See, it's supposed to just go on like that and extend the arrow shelf out and make it a nice flat surface. It extends it out in all directions. A little bit, not really far, but I'm just gonna hot glue it on. I'm using a lot of hot glue here because the arrow shelf that I cut isn't level, and I want to be able to adjust the one that I'm gluing on so it's level and just have the hot glue fill the gap. So you can see I've plugged those ends with a piece of paper, and I've put epoxy over the entire sight window and arrow shelf area to get it like glass smooth, and the whole thing, the whole other part I've sanded with 60 grit sandpaper, and then I think I did 120 after that, but just sand it all so it's got the same texture and it's sort of smooth. There's no weird dents or anything from the clamp. So you can see I painted it black. I don't really need to show you how to paint it, I don't think. And I'm just going to wrap some vinyl around the handle. This is from a belt. You can get one for pretty cheap at a thrift store or a garage sale or whatever. Wrap it around and super glue it at the ends. You can see I've stuck the end under one of the other wrappings that helps hold it. It looks nice and it feels nice in your hand. You can see I put my logo on there. Backyard Bowyer made a video earlier this year saying that he regretted not marking all of his bows that he's made as made by him, so I decided at least the nicer bows that I make, I'll mark. And this is a continuous loop string. I recommend just buying Dacron and making a string serving tool. I'll link to Backyard Bowyer's videos that show you how to do all the string making stuff. It's really helpful. You can see I marked both in the riser and the limb. There's one dent there and 2 dents at the base of the other limb and that on the riser there, you can see. I just did that with the end of a drill bit. That helps you keep track of which limb goes in which socket. Put the pins in. You can see I also painted the limbs. I didn't bother showing you that. It's not something that I think you really need instruction on, I hope. If you need help seeing how to paint the limbs, then this isn't going to work out for you. I'll just show how I string it up here, and then show you what it looks like finished. So, looks nice in my opinion. Painted and made the way the customer wanted it. Right-handed arrow shelf. Haven't checked the draw weight yet, actually. I'll put in the video description what it is, but I think it's about 40 or 45 pounds. That's what it's supposed to be. String is straight, lined up with the sight window. The limbs are straight. Looks good overall. Here it is compared to the first one that I made. The new one is the one that's strung up. They're pretty the latches are a little bit different, but they're very similar. That's what it looks like disassembled. This is the first time I'm shooting a bow in probably 2 or 3 weeks, and it just works. Like, this bow is so nice to hold and shoot and use. Just a very comfortable, easy shooting, nice bow. It's not like an extremely high draw weight, or it's not also really a low draw weight. It's like just a good for target shooting, or if you wanted hunting. Might be better to get a stronger bow for hunting, but this would be fine. You can see it's an okay grouping. Those are homemade arrows. Just showing you what it looks like again. Here I'm going to test the arrow speed. Haven't weighed these arrows yet. I think they're like 400 or 450 grains, but I'll weigh them and tell you in the description. 139.2 feet per second. I was having some trouble with the chronograph. And 144.5.